So welcome to In Conversations With, a series of discussions with people who hold advanced degrees in the life sciences about their careers and career journeys. My name is Chris Heinen. I'm a professor of medicine at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine and the director of postdoctoral affairs at UConn Health. And I'm also a member of the ASBMB Education and Professional Development Committee. Hey, Chandrima.
Hi, I'm Chandrima. I'm a postdoc at the University of California, Berkeley, and I'm also a member of the ASPMB Education Professional Development Committee. We're really excited to start this series of conversations about the vast array of careers available to grad students and postdocs in the life sciences. When we were discussing who would be good guests to first speak with, we realized we had a number of people on our own EPD committee with a variety of different career paths. So we decided to kick things off with a few of our own people. Today, we are pleased to have fellow EPD member Dr. Nisha Cavanaugh with us. Nisha is the Associate Director of Career Development and Postdoctoral Programs at Sanford Burnham Prebys Medical Discovery Institute in La Jolla, California. Nisha, it's great to see you again, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Chandra and Chris.
Yeah.
Great pronunciation, Chandrama, on the
Thank you.
Oh, I wish I'd listened more carefully to how she said it. So let's start, Nisha. Have you tell us a little bit about your role at Sanford Burnham Prebys. And maybe as a precursor to that, some people may not be familiar with exactly what Sanford Burnham Prebys is. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about what it is, as well as then get into what you do there.
Sure. All right, so I'll start with your first question about the institute itself. So Sanford Burnham Prebys Medical Discovery Institute, or as we fondly refer to as Sanford Burnham Prebys, is a nonprofit biomedical research institute in La Jolla, California. It has 50 research labs. It's very similar to an academic institution, but much smaller. And the Institute has a very collaborative approach with both academic and industry partnerships. And our mission is to push biomedical discoveries faster and further toward clinical treatment and therapies. We have one of only 7 NCI designated basic research cancer centers. And we also have the Conrad Prebys Center for Chemical Genomics. One of the unique features of our institute, we have one PhD program in biomedical sciences. So even though our institute only has about 600 people total, we have 50 graduate students and 70 postdocs on campus. And being in La Jolla, we are very close to Salk, Scripps, and UC San Diego. So there's a lot of collaboration across the Mesa, the Torrey Pines Mesa. So my role in our organization is to support the education and training mission of the Institute by overseeing the portfolio of career and professional development programs for biomedical graduate students and postdocs. And so I develop and create new programs, as well as the ones that we offer already, and new opportunities, and collaborate with our faculty, with senior leadership, the graduate school, our philanthropy team, as well as our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging team, to create these new programs and opportunities that shape the graduate education and postdoc training experiences at the Institute, and support our trainees in accomplishing their research goals while at the Institute, as well as provide them with the tools and resources they need to effectively prepare for their future careers.
So what does that mean? Let's dive in a little bit more. Give us some sense of some of the things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis.
So part of our workshop portfolio includes providing hands-on training for grant writing, manuscript writing, putting together scientific presentations for conferences, or speaking to a non-scientific audience. These can be one-off workshops throughout the year, or they could be more comprehensive, where we have, for example, a leadership development program that's offered once a month and is more intensive. We start with a cohort model, and every month they come and hear about they hear material, we engage in discussions, and the idea is through these workshops and programs, they are actually learning the skills, they're developing them over time, and we want to then have them apply them to their work currently as graduate students and postdocs, or prepare them to use those in their future career. Does that answer your question? Or
Yeah,
would
absolutely.
you?
So do you have a team of people that work with you, or?
We are an office of education, training, and international services.
Okay.
And the career and professional development portfolio falls to me and my colleague, as well as my my supervisor, who's the chief learning officer. So there are 3 of us that really work on this.
That's really awesome. And as a postdoc, I really appreciate having access to these kind of services because during our research, it's not typically what we're taught. So these kind of workshops are extremely helpful. How did you move into this field? After your postdoc, how did you get into career development services and workshops?
So it actually started in my postdoc. I was a postdoc at the National Institute for Environmental Health Sciences, one of the NIH institutes in North Carolina. And it was actually my journey trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my PhD that I attended workshops focused on different careers, as well as trying to understand both technical and transferable skills that I could bring to the workplace. And as I started exploring careers, I realized that what I really wanted to do was help other people answer the question, what to do with my PhD. And so that's how my journey started. And so the last year of my postdoc, I was the chair of our postdoc association, and I started collaborating with administration and other groups that collaborated with the Institute to develop programs for postdocs. And then my mentor at the time actually helped me to get in touch with the National Postdoc Association. And so I got involved with the at the national level, learning more about what are the critical issues that postdocs are facing, what are the challenges that they are facing, and how can we solve some of the problems that may make it more difficult for postdocs as they transition into independent careers. And so that's really how I learned about postdoc offices. I learned about career and professional development careers. And I would say that even now, the area that I work in is continuing to expand. So I don't even know if my job necessarily would have existed back then. And it's kind of grown and evolved over time.
That's
So
really
I want to
incredible
go
that
ahead,
you
Jim.
kind of carved a niche for yourself like that. I'm sure it involved like networking with a lot of people, kind of like learning what kind of problems are out there and how to go about solving it. Could you speak to that a little bit? Like, how did you go about making connections with people that would ultimately land you in this career path?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it came through getting involved outside the lab. So I started attending professional society conferences. I volunteered for the National Postdoc Association. I got involved with their advocacy committee, and that helped me to really expand my professional network. At the same time, I helped co-organize a career symposium with my fellow postdocs at NIEHS, which allowed us to bring in speakers from a variety of career paths that could then serve on panels. And a lot of getting involved and volunteering is really what helped me connect with people in this career field. So I started meeting individuals who were at Duke, at UNC, and North Carolina State University, all of the local institutions in North Carolina at the time, to help me figure out, what jobs are currently available, what opportunities are there for the future. And then it so happened that an opportunity came about at NC State where they were looking for the director of a postdoc office. And it was a pretty big jump for a postdoc to go straight into that kind of position. And it helped that I was already involved with a professional society. So that is one thing that I would definitely recommend, is being involved in professional societies, really getting outside the lab and and that networking piece that you mentioned is really what I think helped boost my credentials to say, like, I was aware of what was going on at the national level, and I had already started making connections with people at other institutions.
Yeah, I'm glad you've brought that up now, just this idea of getting involved with some of these organizations, whether it is something like ASBMB or the National Postdoc Association, to that the value in that for trainees to get involved in that, as Chandrima has done here. It just has a lot of different benefits beyond the science, and even if you are interested in a research career, still just that networking, like you described, has so many benefits that you might not imagine.
I echo that, Chris. I mean, I think that this has been a really great serving on ASBMB's EPD committee has been really nice because we all have the biomedical sciences in common, our scientific interests, but we're coming from so many different sectors, so many different careers. And so it's a great networking opportunity. And so it's really, I love that we have postdocs and grad students on the committee that can help give to their input into the initiatives from this committee. So I completely agree.
So I swear to our listeners, this wasn't intended to be a commercial for joining ASBMB, but
not at all.
If it came out of that a little bit, that's fine. But I do want to go back to that transition from postdoc to your first position. How did you even know that such a position existed? Like, how would you even thought that that was a possibility that a postdoc could entertain? And then maybe from that, now knowing where the world is today, what types of positions are there in administration that for PhDs that are coming out of, whether it's a postdoc or a grad school with that background? Without
Okay, that's
having to go through a faculty position first for a number of years. We think of administrators sometimes as having, old faculty people, right, that transition to administration, but clearly that's not the case for all these positions now, right?
So yeah, there's a lot. I'll try to address. I may forget a question.
Yeah,
so
sorry, I threw like 10 questions at once on you.
No. I think this is a great conversation. So let me see if I can go back. When I was a postdoc, I actually did not think that this was a possibility.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't want to be a faculty member. No offense, Chris. I have a lot of respect for you and faculty who pursue that career. I knew it wasn't a good fit for me. But I thought then my only other option was industry research. And it wasn't until, like I said, in my postdoc where I started to recognize that there were, or I started to learn about more career paths, that it was not until I met the director of the postdoc office at NIEHS. And she had a PhD. And that was the first time that I asked myself, I'm like, how did you get this job with a PhD? And how did you make that transition? And I would say that she was one of the first people that I think was really established this career path. And so it was asking her a lot of questions about how she got her job that then it kind of made me take a step back and realize that I wasn't just I wasn't stuck to just two options, faculty in academia or industry. And then from that, then as I've been growing in this career path, early on, it was very clear that some organizations had career trajectories for these types of roles and others did not. And that became a hurdle for me because I realized that I wanted to do the work, but I also always strive to learn and grow myself. And if I'm going to tell postdocs and graduate students about professional development, I myself want to also be able to do that. And so I really moved from my previous institute to my current institute for the reason of there was a lot more growth and opportunity to grow in science administration and not just be stuck doing one thing. But now out of my role, I have worked with a faculty member to develop a scientific communication course that's required for our PhD graduate students. we've developed a leadership program that is comprehensive and open to postdocs across the country, which really has enabled us to connect postdocs from multiple different institutions to have conversations about managing conflict, understanding yourself, working in teams. So that has really been what I think has expanded these types of roles. And then let me see, your last question, I think, was about
This idea of
in the
careers in
future.
research administration where you don't go through a faculty step first.
And so there are some places, our institute is one of those where you can be, well, actually, I should say, there are institutions where you could move up into like an assistant or an associate dean position, and you do not necessarily need to have the research faculty position first. So that is another place where people could grow into science administration. There are a lot of programs that are focused on science education, developing opportunities for undergraduates or underrepresented minority groups to continue to encourage them to pursue scientific careers. There's a lot more focus now on also making sure that we have programs that can also help women, female scientists, move up into the ladder. And so a lot of these programs are led by scientific administrators. So I think that there are, and the other thing is I think that there are some careers that haven't even been created yet that are still to come, develop depending on what the needs are of academic institutions. And so I think that the skill set that we get from a PhD program is really what's going to lend itself to developing new careers in the future.
That's awesome. I think one of the topics you hit upon when you mentioned your career transition was you knew faculty roles weren't for you. You weren't particularly interested in industry. It took a lot of self-reflection, talking to people to identify that this is the career path for you. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Like, how do you encourage postdocs and grad students to identify the values they will be looking for in their future career?
I absolutely think that that is essential for everyone. The first thing that I think everyone should be doing as part of their PhD program, and if you haven't, then definitely in your postdoc, is fundamentally understanding yourself. And we understand ourselves, but we may not realize, or we may take for granted the things that we are naturally good at. And so I encourage our graduate students and postdocs at our institute, as well as anyone that I meet along the way, to consider using assessments or tools online, such as the Science Careers My IDP or the Imagine PhD, to kind of do a self-reflection exercise of what are the skills that you're really good at? What are the things that come naturally to you? You could do that through like this Clifton Strengths Assessment. What are the things that matter to you? What are the things that excite you? I think when I was younger, I really just wanted to have a job that I would love to do every day and be excited to go to every day. And that really comes down to what are my interests, what are my values, what are my skills, and what are the things that that come naturally to me, and that then a job or an institution would actually want and would seek. And that's then where, if you understand yourself and what you want out of that job, then you can start to figure out what are the positions, what are the careers out there that align with your skills, your interests, your values, and your strengths. I think your personality and comes out more naturally when you're enjoying the work that you do. So I love that question, Chandrima.
That's awesome. Kind of speaking of enjoying the work that you do, what is it that you love about your job?
I love teaching and training and mentoring our grad students and postdocs. I prefer having one-on-one conversations, but I also like doing workshops. The excitement comes from being able to talk about leadership and presentation skills and fellowship writing skills and all of these things that we want our graduate students and postdocs to develop as transferable skills that complement the technical skills they get at the bench. And then they go and apply them and come back with, they got a fellowship, or they got that manuscript published, or they gave a talk at a conference. Those are the rewarding moments. I love when our alumni come back and talk about how happy they are in the job that they pursued, the career path they pursued. They want to come back and talk about that and share their story with our grad students and postdocs. So those are the moments that really make my work worthwhile.
I love what you said earlier about not taking for granted what you're good at, because I think that's something that we tend to do, and I know trainees do that. But going through a PhD program is hard, and those of you that are doing it and have done it are clearly very talented people. You just simply have to be to have made it as far as you are. And I think we forget that sometimes because we're surrounded by all these talented people in these institutions, and we kind of lose sight of that. But is that sort of part of what you see and deal with in your job, is sort of almost in some ways helping their confidence in going out and taking on this challenge? Because it's this big thing that hangs over their head, right? What am I going to do after this, right? And it can be daunting, but they've got what it takes, right? It's just sort of reminding yourself of that.
That's a really good point. Well, as you were talking, you made me think about how many times I've reviewed resumes for grad students and postdocs who are applying for jobs, and they miss a lot of the things that I've seen them accomplish. Because, like you said, they may take those things for granted, or they may overlook them because they're just so focused on the research. And so I feel like I watch these individuals grow over time, and we can have conversations about, well, don't you remember that you served on our graduate student association and you were part of this conversation with the graduate program executive committee about an issue that the grad students were facing? Or, talking to our postdocs and saying, you helped organize this career day event that was a big event for our postdocs, and helped them to network with professionals in the field. So I think that there are moments where during advising sessions that I do appreciate recognizing when we may take our graduate students and postdocs need to articulate those things that they do in addition to their research. And first and foremost, absolutely, the research they do is fundamental, and we really want them to be successful with their science. I just want them to also complement that with all of the other things that they do that they may not realize is just as important. And employers and supervisors and organizations want to see that too.
Yeah, and value them, right? I mean, I think the example you took of organizing that session or organizing the meeting, like someone that's dead set on becoming a research faculty may think that that's just sort of a secondary, and some may even see that as a waste of time. But if you equate that to what you might do as a faculty, let's say you're putting together a collaborative grant, right, or a collaborative team, and it's the ability to organize, it's the ability to network, it's the ability to interact, that interpersonal communication with others that lets you build that team. I mean, all these skills come back even in a strict research career, and
absolutely,
you don't think about it. And so it's worth the effort to get involved in these things and to value them.
Absolutely. And I think that is something that across the board in every career, those transferable skills are so important. And I love that one of the things that is really nice about being at a smaller institute, our faculty actually are highly involved with the career and professional development workshops. They're the ones who put together a study section, a mock study section discussion of a fellowship specific aims page. They really want to gain more knowledge and awareness about mentoring and leadership and working in teams, because we want to foster a collaborative work environment. And I think it is important that the faculty also demonstrate that these things are needed. So then our grad students and postdocs will
right.
follow that example.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back a little bit to what you said about grad students and postdocs identifying their transferable skills and presenting them in a way for their future employers to know that they are able to do the job that they're employing for. I'm sure you have to do this a lot when you're like helping people craft their resumes and CVs, but how would grad students and postdocs kind of identify the skills that industry or academia are looking for, given that what future employers are looking for might be changing over the years? Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I articulated this question quite right, but I guess what I'm asking is requirements might change in a 5 to 10 year period, or like even a 1 to 2 year period. How do you kind of keep tabs on what employers are looking for?
Yeah, so now I'm going to put my workshop hat on, my advisor side on. And I think a lot of the time with any career path, but industry specifically, it comes down to what is the organization looking for that role. And often it's in the job description, the skills that that are highly necessary, required, or recommended for that position. And so often it's a lot about just reading the job description and seeing what's necessary. But I think the whole point of transferable skills is that they can be used in any career path. Technical skills are specific to a role, to a job, but transferable skills, communication, leadership, teamwork, collaboration, writing, presenting, all of those can be used in any career path. And I think sometimes we forget that we've developed these critical thinking and analytical skills during our PhD program. And those really can be used for problem solving and troubleshooting in any career path. And so a lot of the things that I did as a graduate student and a postdoc, I definitely use even in my current position. I don't do hard science or scientific or research now, but I do more social science research. So I look at a lot of data about where are postdocs going after what is their next career step, and what are the opportunities they took advantage of? Are those actually helping facilitate that transition? So I'm doing a lot of analysis and of those data and using the same skill set that I developed as a PhD student. And so it's the same thing in a lot of different career paths that I think those transferable skills really, I don't think will change over time. They'll still be needed. We still need to be able to communicate with others that we work with. And often we have different communication styles. So trying to understand how best to communicate with someone, whether it be writing in a bulleted point, maybe they prefer to work, face to face rather than by email. All of those things, I think, could be applied to any career path. I hope I answered your question. I may have taken a little bit
No, that was
off.
a really great example of how you've kind of transitioned from your hardcore scientific research to more social science research, but you're basically doing the same things in a lot of ways where you're looking at data, aggregating data, analyzing what it means. Yeah.
Exactly. And then sharing that and then making informed decisions about what to do next. Really, those data are needed to get buy-in from faculty about our programs, or to say to funding agencies why we still need to continue to do this. In fact, there was a report just recently that came out from the NIH saying that, postdocs really need to have 10% of their time dedicated to career and professional development. And it is so important that that's integral to their training as they are transitioning to their independent careers.
Did you have to do any additional sort of formal education or training for the position you're in? I don't know whether it's going back to school at all, or a certificate program, or is there any other additional training that you need for what you're doing, or is it just sort of learning as you go?
For the job itself, I didn't need to do any further certification. A lot of it was getting expertise in program management, administration, being able to put together programs and be able to coordinate activities. But I had the opportunity through my current position to pursue my own professional development thanks to just as a side note, my mentor, who was the director of the postdoc office at NIEHS, is actually now my boss. So I actually ended up following her. And in that role, she provided a lot more opportunities for taking certificate programs. So I've actually taken, I've become a Strengths Finder coach. I took the MBTI certification, and those really helped me to develop my own workshops and therefore really enhance my ability to advise and put together programs. So there are individuals who just
MBTI is what? MBTI.
Oh, sorry, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator.
Oh, okay.
There are other assessments as well. I've been trained in the Thomas Kilmann Influence Indicator, Thomas Kilmann Indicator, and all of those allow us to put together our own workshops rather than inviting other people. And so in that way, it's been cost effective to the institution because then we're not paying somebody every time. And also, again, I can use my PhD to not only to provide the programming, but then I use my PhD to think about relevant examples in the lab where graduate students and postdocs might encounter certain situations. And so that's been a really good way of being able to connect with our postdocs and graduate students, is saying, like, I've been through this. I've been through the PhD program. I've been through the postdoc. I know what it's like. And here are some situations that you might encounter. For example, authorship on a paper. And how do you have that conversation with your PI? So then bringing those difficult conversations as a discussion topic for postdocs and grad students to think about ahead of time before they actually have to be in that situation. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, let's ask the opposite of what you were asked earlier. So what sucks about your job?
I have to admit, this was the hard one for me to think about. Because there are always things that I just don't like to do.
Yeah.
But
was a little strong, but what are some of the things that are a little more negative?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's hard competing deadlines, for example. I mean, that's what keeps me up at night sometimes. It's just like there's so many things to do. So I will say, one of the I should say, challenges of working at a small institution is that we don't have like multiple offices. There's less bureaucracy, but then there also means that there's a lot more to do with fewer number of people. So it's nice because I have plenty of work that keeps me busy, but it also means that sometimes I have to make tough choices about the things that I can't pursue because I only have so much capacity. I think that there's just always going to be things that are not fun about a job. It definitely takes me longer to write in general. So that takes more time for me. I'm really good at planning, but writing, I definitely need to dedicate a lot more time to. So, I think with everything, there are just the things that we really do enjoy doing, and then the things that we just have to do.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. So, one question as we're closing is, if you could kind of turn back time, go and meet your, younger self when you were finishing up undergrad or grad school, what would you like to tell her about your career path and how it played out?
Oh my goodness, Chandra, this is a hard question. I feel like the whole time I'm like, oh, I can handle these questions. And now the last two, I'm like, whoo, these are hard questions. Okay, so let's see. Reflecting back, if I was to
You already have the job, so there's not really pressure. You're not being evaluated for anything.
Yeah.
I think I think it took me a while to get to into the career path that I wanted. And I would probably still tell myself as a graduate student to be patient. I definitely encourage everyone to try and think about their career in graduate school and not end up in a postdoc like I did without any idea. Because what I would love is, I'm trying to answer your question. What I would love is for everyone to really think about it in their graduate, while they're a graduate student, and then purposefully, intentionally use their postdoc to make that transition. And so that they are maximizing their time, both as a graduate student and as a postdoc, to get to that independent position. That really aligns with their skills, strengths, interests, and values. And so along the way, I would also tell myself to enjoy the journey. I really loved being a graduate student and as a postdoc. I started running marathons and half marathons. So I enjoyed my time while I was also doing science. And I think the other thing I would say is that I said this before, the future career may not actually exist yet. And so this is also an opportunity for us to explore and possibly even create new things that that then future generations can appreciate.
Yeah, I sometimes want to tell trainees, worry about your future career, but don't worry about it. It's kind of like you have to think about it and plan and prepare a little bit, but let the journey play itself out. It's gonna work out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Nisha, thank you so much for joining us and
thank you so
to us.
much.
It was really a lot of fun to learn more about your position and hear your words of wisdom. To those of you that are listening and want to continue the conversation, you can visit the ASBMB Active site, where there'll be a thread about today's episode, and you can comment on the discussion and ask questions. We'll be monitoring that, and we can answer questions. If you have questions for Dr. Cavanaugh about her career in more depth, you can ask those there. So thank you very much, Nisha. Great to see you. Chandrima.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chandrima. This has been
Thank you,
delightful. I really appreciate the conversation.